The basement still smelled like the last owners. Old varnish, gasoline, and something sweet in a way that didn't belong underground. The Carter family had moved in 2 days earlier, still buzzing from the deal they'd gotten on the big white house at the end of a cul-de-sac in some quiet American suburb where every lawn looked cloned. Tom was the one who wanted to check out the basement first. He joked that every real American home needed a place to store bad Christmas decorations and tools he'd never use. His wife, Megan, trailed behind him with a flashlight, and their daughter, 8-year-old Lily, bounced down the steps like she was exploring a castle. The light switch didn't work, so they used their phones, beams slicing through layers of dust that floated like slow snow. The basement was large, unfinished, with old shelves and cracked cement tiles. Nothing unusual, until Lily pointed at the far wall. "Daddy, what's that?" At first, Tom thought it was just a scrap of old wallpaper peeling in a weird way. But when he got closer, he saw it wasn't paper at all. It was leather, thin, brittle, and nailed directly into the concrete. A sheet of it, maybe 2 feet wide, stained dark with age. Megan lifted her flashlight. Is that writing?" It was. Thin, black strokes, faded but legible. Names. Dozens of names, written in tall, old-fashioned script, like something from a colonial museum. Beside each name was a date. Winter dates, stretching back more than a century. Tom ran his fingers across it, feeling the tiny ridges of old ink. "All these dates are Christmas Eve," Megan whispered. The last name on the list was from 19 years ago. Beside it, another date, and a note in smaller writing. "Taken." Lily hugged herself. "What does taken mean?" Neither parent answered. Tom was squinting at the bottom corner. There was empty space beneath the last name, a blank stretch of leather. As they watched, something shimmered across that surface. A darkness, wet-looking, a stroke, a letter forming. Megan gasped and stumbled backward. Tom dropped his phone. The ink kept appearing, one careful stroke at a time, as if an invisible hand were writing it. The first letter was L, then I, then L again. Tom grabbed Lily by the shoulder so fast she yelped, pulling her back from the wall. Megan dropped to her knees, shaking her head as if she could refuse the reality in front of her. The final letter curved into place. Y. Under it, today's date, slowly blooming in fresh ink. The leathery sheet tightened, making a soft cracking sound like something waking up. And then the floor under their feet vibrated just once, like a heartbeat deep in the concrete. Christmas was in 4 days, and the list wasn't done writing. That first night, none of them slept well. The house felt wrong now, too large, too hollow, like the walls were listening. Tom kept replaying the moment the ink had formed Lily's name, each slow curve burning itself into his memory. Around midnight, Megan woke to a soft thump from upstairs. At first, she thought it was just the house settling. New houses creaked, old houses groaned. This one was somewhere in between. But then she heard it again. A step. Then another, slow, deliberate, directly above their bed. She sat up straight. "Tom," she whispered. He was already awake. "I heard it." A faint, rhythmic creaking drifted down from the ceiling beams, like someone walking from Lily's room to the top of the stairs, then stopping. Tom grabbed the baseball bat he'd uncacked earlier, he hadn't intended to use it for anything but decor, and crept into the hallway. Megan stayed behind just long enough to hear the soft, breathy laugh of their daughter in the distance. Except Lily never laughed like that. The sound was too light, too cold. Megan hurried after her husband. At the end of the hall, Lily's bedroom door was slightly open. A thin strip of yellow nightlight spilled onto the carpet. Tom nudged the door wider with his foot. Lily lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the corner of the ceiling. Her pupils were wide, swallowing almost all the color in her irises. "Sweetie," Megan whispered, "what are you looking at?" Lily lifted one shaky hand and pointed. The corner seemed darker than it should be. Not shadow, something thicker, like dampness spreading through wood. Tom stepped toward it, but Lily suddenly sat up, frantic. "Don't," she said. "He doesn't like when people get close." Megan felt her blood go cold. "Who?" Lily blinked fast, as if trying to remember how to speak. "The man with the bells. He was in my room." Tom froze. "What bells?" "He keeps them in his coat. They sound funny, like they're underwater." Megan pulled her daughter into her arms. Lily was ice cold. They stayed there until Lily finally fell asleep, her breathing shallow and uneven. Tom checked every closet, every lock, every window. Nothing was broken. No sign of entry. When morning came, the three of them stood in the kitchen, exhausted, bleary-eyed. Megan started making coffee, then stopped abruptly. Her phone was on the counter, screen glowing, an app open. Dozens of images, one after another. All taken in the basement. Each photo showed the leather sheet nailed to the wall, but closer each time, as if someone had stepped toward it between shots. The last image was taken so close that the grain of the leather looked like human skin, and at the bottom corner, where Lily's name had appeared last night, the ink seemed fresher, brighter, almost wet. Megan didn't remember taking any of the pictures. Her hands shook so hard she almost dropped the phone. Tom lifted his eyes toward the ceiling as if listening. The boards above them creaked, once, like a single step, then another. Something was walking upstairs again, and this time it wasn't trying to be quiet.
Tom drove to the town's historical office the next morning, running mostly on fear and half a cup of cold coffee. The building was small, wedged between a dentist's office and a thrift store, its windows fogged from the inside. A bell jingled when he stepped in, too sharp, too bright, too much like the sound Lily had described. Behind the counter sat an older man with silver hair pulled neatly into a tie at the back. His name tag read, "Mr. Crowley, Archivist." He didn't smile. "What can I help you find?" Crowley asked, voice dry as old paper. Tom explained carefully that he was researching unusual local traditions tied to Christmas Eve. He didn't mention the list, or the ink, or the footsteps. Crowley studied him for a moment too long. Then he turned and unlocked a narrow door behind the desk. "Follow me." The archive room was cold. The lights flickered. Rows of metal cabinets stretched out like ribs. Crowley pulled open one labeled Incident Reports, Historic. He laid 3 yellowed folders on the table. Each one held newspaper clippings, handwritten statements, faded photos, children smiling at first, then missing, stamped across their faces. 1897, 1898, 1899. Every report described strange activity in the days before Christmas, footsteps on roofs, bells heard at night, the same chilling phrase repeated in several different handwritings. He came for the child promised. Tom swallowed hard. Promised by who? By the family, of course, whether they knew it or not. Tom felt a tremor run through his hands. Crowley closed the last folder with a soft click. Sometimes, he murmured, a town survives only by honoring old arrangements. Tom forced himself to breathe. If a family wanted to break that arrangement? Crowley looked up at him, expression suddenly hollow. Then something else must be given instead. Tom's blood turned to ice. He didn't stay to hear more. He practically ran out of the building, and as he reached his car, his phone buzzed with a message from Megan. Lily is gone. Tom hit every red light on the way home. The town looked almost cheerful. Plastic candy canes, blow-up Santas, a huge plywood nativity in front of a strip mall. It all felt like a bad joke laid over something rotten. He didn't remember parking. He just remembered the front door swinging open before his key even touched it. Megan stood in the hallway, pale, barefoot, phone still in her hand. "She was gone," she said, voice shaking. "I swear to you, Tom, she was gone." He pushed past her toward Lily's room and stopped. Lily sat on the edge of her bed, hands in her lap, hair a mess like she'd been outside in strong wind. Her pajamas were dusted with gray powder, like concrete. Her feet were bare and dirty. "Hey, kiddo," said Tom carefully. "Where did you go?" Lily blinked at him. For a second she seemed not to recognize him. Then she frowned, confused. "I was in the snow, but it wasn't cold. It was wrong." Megan came up beside him. "She wasn't here, Tom. I checked every room. The door was still locked. And then I heard the basement door slam. When I went down, she was just standing in front of that list." Tom's gaze slid to Lily's wrists. Thin, dark lines circled them like someone had held her too tightly with sooty hands. He forced himself to breathe. Okay, we're gonna figure this out." Megan's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen. "Who is it?" Tom asked. "The library. I left a message earlier. Some woman, Hargrove. She says she has information about those cases you asked about." Tom nodded slowly. "Put her on speaker." Megan tapped the screen, set the phone on Lily's nightstand. A dry, careful voice filled the room. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, this is Mrs. Hargrove from the town library. I'm calling because your questions about Christmas Eve, they're not exactly theoretical, are they?" Tom swallowed. "No, they're not." A pause, papers rustling. "This town was founded after a very bad winter. Crops failed. Children died. There is an old record, older than any charter, that speaks of a winter benefactor, a figure who would take one child each generation in exchange for mild winters and prosperity." Maggie's knees gave out. She sat on the floor. Tom stared at Lily. "There's a document," he said, "in our basement." "Yes," Hargrove said quietly. "The taking list. It appears where the chosen family lives. It writes the names, the dates. Once a name appears, the child is considered promised." Lily's voice was very small. "To who?" Hargrove didn't answer for a long moment. "To the one in the coat,"
she finally said. "He comes with the deep snow just before Christmas." Tom felt something inside him snap. What if we don't accept it? What if we break it, burn it, move away? Hargrove's voice turned almost sympathetic. Others have tried. The list doesn't burn. Moving doesn't matter. The bargain is older than your house, older than the town name on your mail. Megan wiped her face. There has to be a way to stop it. Another pause. When Hargrove spoke again, her voice was lower. "I can't tell you exactly what it is, only what the records imply." "Anything," Tom said. "Tell us anything." "The winter benefactor does not care who is taken, only that the promise is kept." Lily shivered. Outside, somewhere far off in the bright plastic suburb, faint bells started to ring. The bells faded, but the tension they left behind clung to the walls like frost. Tom double-checked every lock, shoved a chair under the front door handle, and drew the curtains tight. Megan stayed close to Lily, watching shadows like they meant to reach for her. Near sunset, there was a knock. Not loud, not frantic, just 3 polite taps. Tom froze. No one opens that door. But the knocking came again, same rhythm, same calm confidence. Megan checked the pee-hole and gasped. "It's a priest," she whispered. A middle-aged man stood on the porch in a black coat and collar, holding a worn leather Bible and a small lantern. His face looked strained, almost too eager. Tom cracked the door an inch, keeping the chain on. "Evening," the man said, with a breath that fogged the cold air. "I'm Father Willis. I was sent by Mrs. Hargrove." Megan's eyes widened. Had Hargrove called him? Or had someone else? Willis leaned closer. "I heard your daughter has been marked." Tom slammed the door shut, but Willis pressed his palm against it, voice calm and insistent. "You can't do this alone. I know the rules. I know the old bargain, and I know how to free a child's name." Megan looked at Tom, torn between terror and desperate hope. After a long silence, he unlatched the chain and opened the door, but only halfway. Father Willis stepped inside, breathing hard as if he'd run to get there. "I've studied the taking list for years. My own daughter was chosen a decade ago." Megan's breath hitched. "Did you save her?" The priest's jaw tightened. "Not exactly. But I learned things. Sacrifice, symbols, loopholes the town keeps quiet." Tom didn't like how his hands shook, not with fear, but with anger. "What do you want?" he asked. The priest's eyes moved past them, toward the hallway where Lily was peeking out from behind her doorframe. "I want to help," he said. "Let me see the list." Tom stepped between him and Lily. "That's not happening." Father Willis's smile stretched too wide, too sudden. "I wasn't asking." His hand darted toward his coat pocket. Tom grabbed his wrist before he could pull out whatever he was reaching for. A blade, an object, a relic. Tom didn't care. He shoved Willis back so hard the priest stumbled into the wall. Willis recovered instantly, face twisting with something far from holy. "You don't understand," he hissed. "If you won't give the list what it wants, someone else must take the child. It's the only way to keep the benefactor from coming himself." Tom's blood turned to ice. "You were going to take her?" he whispered. The priest didn't deny it. "I'm trying to save your lives." Tom lunged. Willis bolted out the door, sprinting into the dusk like an animal. The family locked the door behind him. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then Lily tugged Megan's sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, "he's not the only one coming." She pointed at the window. Frost was spreading across the inside glass from a handprint on the outside. By the time Tom pulled Lily away from the frosted window, the handprint was already fading, as if whatever made it had withdrawn its fingers slowly, deliberately. Outside, the yard lay still. No footprints, no signs of anyone passing by. Just silence thick enough to crush sound. They gathered in the living room, all lights on, trying to pretend the house still belonged to them. It didn't. The walls felt tight, like the structure was exhaling cold air around them. "We're staying together tonight. No one goes anywhere alone." But the house disagreed. Around midnight, a sharp crack echoed through the hallway, wood splintering. They rushed toward the sound to find a section of floorboards in front of Lily's room shifted out of place, pushed up from beneath, like something had risen under them. "What did that?" Megan whispered. Tom crouched and tugged one loose plank aside. Under it was a square cut in the subfloor, a trap door. Old iron hinges coated in dust. A smell drifted out. Cold earth, rust, and something sweet like old pine sap. Lily's face went pale. "I don't want it go down there again." Tom whipped around. "Again?" Lily clapped her hand over her mouth, eyes wide, as if she hadn't meant to say it aloud. Tom swallowed hard. "Sweetheart, did someone take you down there earlier?" She shook her head fast. "Not someone, something." Megan crouched beside her. "What did you see?" Her voice trembled. "Toys, and snow that didn't melt, and a coat hanging on the wall." The air in the hallway turned colder, as if responding to her words. Tom forced the trapdoor open. A short wooden ladder led down into darkness. He clicked on his flashlight and descended first. The small room beneath the floor was no bigger than a walk-in closet, but it felt ancient, older than the house above it. The walls were packed dirt, smoothed by hands long gone. Frost glittered on the ground in a thin layer, unmelted despite the warm air above. And scattered everywhere were toys. Old ones. A stuffed horse with button eyes. A metal fire truck missing a wheel. Wooden blocks carved with initials Tom didn't recognize. A tiny pair of mittens stiff from cold. In the far corner hung a coat. Huge, heavy, dark fur. The same kind Lily had described. It wasn't hanging from nothing at all. Suspended in the air, gently swaying as if brushed by an invisible hand. Tom backed away slowly, heart hammering. When he climbed back up, he shut the trapdoor so hard dust flew. Megan grabbed his arm, terrified. "What's down there?" Tom shook his head, struggling to find any word that didn't sound insane. But Lily answered for him, quietly. "That's his room." A long, low creak rolled through the house, wood bending under weight. Not from Lily's room this time, from directly above them. Something was walking on the second floor, and it knew exactly where they were. The creaking didn't stop, each step above them slow, measured, and purposeful. Not the scatter of an animal or the sprint of an intruder. This was someone who knew the layout of the house, someone who moved with ownership. Tom grabbed the bat with both hands. Megan pulled Lily behind her, pressing the girl against her legs like she could shield her with touch alone. The steps traveled from the guest room, past the bathroom, then paused directly over the hallway where they stood. The floorboards flexed. Dust rained down in a thin gray sprinkle. "Tom," she whispered, "we can't stay here." But the stairs leading up were only a few feet away, and whatever was upstairs clearly preferred height, preferred vantage. They needed to lure it away. Before Tom could decide what to do, something fell onto the first step of the staircase, soft and light. Megan flinched. It was a mitten, small, child-sized, frosted with a thin sheet of ice, just like the pair in the room beneath the floor. Another creak. The weight above shifted, heading toward the top of the staircase. Then Lily whispered something that made both parents turn to her at once. "He's not alone today." Her eyes were unfocused, pupils too large, as if something unseen was reflecting inside them. "What do you mean?" Megan asked, voice cracking. Lily raised a trembling finger toward the ceiling. "He brought the others today." Tom's breath caught. "Others?" "The children," Lily whispered. "All the children from the list. I heard them walking with him. They don't have shoes." As if in answer, the creaking changed, became lighter, quicker, scattered. Dozens of small footsteps now flitted across the upstairs hallway, soft, tapping, aimless. A few ran, a few stopped suddenly like listening. One set of little steps pattered right to the top of the staircase and stopped. A faint laugh, high and thin, echoed down the stairwell. Megan covered her mouth. Tom felt his grip tighten on the bat until his knuckles whitened. A tall shadow suddenly darkened the upper landing. The figure didn't descend. Instead, it stood still, too still, as the smaller shadows swirled around its legs like restless smoke. Then the air changed. A sudden gust swept through the hallway, cold enough to sting their eyes. The lights flickered. The trap door beneath their feet rattled violently, as if something below wanted out. It wasn't the children. It wasn't the figure upstairs. It was something else entirely. Tom pulled Lily close. "We're leaving, now." He led them toward the front door. But before they reached it, every window in the living room frosted over in an instant, ice crawling across the glass in spiderweb patterns. And from outside, carried on the wind, came the unmistakable jingle of bells. Slow, deep, and distant, growing closer. The bells grew louder. No melody, no cheer. Just a slow, metallic warning carried through the walls. Frost crawled over the living room windows so fast the glass strained, cracking in thin spider lines. Tom shoved the coffee table against the door. "We're not letting anything in." But Megan wasn't looking at the door. She was staring at the hallway, toward the basement stairs. The list. It was calling them. Not with sound, but with a pressure in the air, like the house was tilting suckly toward the floor below. Lily clutched her mother's hand, fingers trembling. "He wants me now," she whispered. Tom knelt, gripping her shoulders. "No, he's not getting you. Not now, not ever." But Megan's face had gone pale. She spoke without looking away from the basement door. "Hargrove said there's one loophole, one way to erase a name." Tom's stomach dropped. "Megan, no!"
She said the benefactor doesn't care who is taken. Her voice cracked. Only that a promise is kept. Lily whimpered. Mom? Megan dropped to her knees and hugged her. Baby, I will never let anyone put their hands on you. Do you hear me? Never. But when she pulled away, her eyes told Tom exactly what she intended. She meant to sacrifice herself. He grabbed her wrist. Absolutely not. I'm her mother, Megan said. This is what a parent does. Tom shook his head violently. You think giving yourself up is going to fix this? You think he's playing by rules we understand? A sudden knock hit the door so hard the wood bowed inward. One strike, then another. Slow, deliberate, like someone enormous was testing the frame. The bells were right outside. Lily screamed. Tom dragged them both toward the basement, not to surrender, but to find answers, to destroy the list if he had to tear it off the wall with his bare hands. They rushed down the steps. The basement was colder than before, frost blooming across the cement floor like veins. The leather sheet pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Megan stepped closer. If I sign? No one is signing anything, Tom shouted. But the list already had thoughts of its own. Fresh ink glistened beneath Lily's name, a small dash, the start of a new line. It was writing another name, slowly, painfully, letter by letter. M. E. G. Megan, move! Tom grabbed her and pulled her back. The ink paused as if irritated. Tom, Megan whispered, it wants me instead. No, I'm not letting that happen. The list resumed writing. G. A. N. Her full name now glowed beneath Lily's. Fresh, alive. Outside, the bells stopped. The house fell silent. Then from upstairs, something massive exhaled, slow, hollow, and satisfied. Megan choked out a sob. Tom, it chose me. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, it didn't choose. And then the basement lights went out.
The basement fell into instant, suffocating darkness. Not the normal kind. This was thick, heavy, almost physical. Tom grabbed blindly for Megan's hand, found only air. Megan? He whispered. No answer. A faint shuffle came from the top of the stairs. Not hurried, not clumsy. A slow, deliberate descent, each step creaking under a weight that wasn't entirely human. Tom pulled Lily close. Keep your eyes closed, he whispered. But Lily shook her head. He won't hurt me. He already got what he wants. Tom felt ice crawl up his spine. The figure reached the bottom step. Even in the dark, Tom sensed him, like the air bent around the tall silhouette. The smell of pine pitch, old snow, and something metallic filled the basement. When a dim, ghostly glow flickered from the leather list pinned to the wall, it illuminated just enough to make out the shape. A towering figure in a long fur coat, the edges dragging across the concrete. No face, only a pale blur where one should be, as if frost covered every feature. And from deep within the coat, tiny bells jingled with the soft, breathy music of distant wind. He wasn't Santa. He wasn't human. He was older than both stories put together. Megan stood beside him. She hadn't spoken. She hadn't screamed. She simply stood with her head slightly bowed, as if frozen in place. Her breath came out in thin clouds, escaping like smoke. Tom lunged toward her. In a blink, the figure's long sleeve lifted, no hand visible, just shadow, and Tom was hurled backward by a force that felt like a snowstorm in a solid punch. He slammed into the wall, air knocked from his chest. "Daddy!" Lily cried. Tom gasped, "Stay back!" But Lily stepped forward, slow, calm, like she was approaching a familiar giant. "He didn't choose, Mom. The list did." The figure tilted its head, bells chiming in response, curious, almost approving. Tom forced himself up, bracing the wall. "Take me," he rasped. "Not her. Take me instead." The coat rustled, as if something beneath it leaned forward. The bells quieted, the air tightened. Then the list reacted. Fresh ink seeped across the leather, fast and violent. T-O-M. His name appeared under Megan's, a second line, a violation of its own rules. The leather shuddered like living skin. Megan gasped, snapping out of her frozen stupor. "Tom, no! Don't!" The figure turned toward the list, tilted its faceless head. It first hesitated. 2 names, 2 promised. That had never happened. The floor trembled. The basement bulbs flickered back to a dim orange, pushing shadows into corners. And then, slowly, deliberately, the figure stepped back from Megan and faced Tom fully, choosing, accepting, claiming. Lily screamed for her father, but the sound fractured as the figure lifted both arms, the coat opening like the maw of a cavern. A cold rush of air slammed through the room. The bells roared. Tom shouted her name once before the coat swallowed him in a blinding burst of frost. When the cold cleared, Tom was gone. Only a single footprint remained in the ice on the floor. Not his, a child's. The basement air hung, frozen, heavy with the echo of Tom's last shout. Megan stared at the empty space where he'd stood just seconds ago, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes knew. The figure in the fur coat lowered its arms. The bells went silent. For a moment, just one terrible moment, the entire house felt relieved, as if the agreement had been fulfilled and the old, ancient hunger was satisfied. Then, something changed. The leather list, pinned to the concrete wall, began to twitch, slowly at first, then violently, like something inside it wanted out. A seam split across its surface, thin, black, and pulsing, revealing layers beneath that hadn't been visible before. Megan grabbed Lily and backed away. "Mom? Is Dad?" Megan held her tight, voice breaking. "We're going to get him back." The figure in the coat tilted its head, not mocking, not threatening, almost curious. Then, with a sound like snow drifting off a roof, it began to retreat, rising upward, dissolving into cold air that spiraled toward the ceiling. But the list didn't calm. Ink surged across it, erasing every old name. One by one, the centuries vanished. The contract's history dissolved. Children's names, dates, the word taken, all swallowed by black fluid that soaked into the leather like blood into cloth. And then the surface went blank, completely blank. No names, no dates. Lily clutched Megan's shirt. "Mom, it's empty." Megan stared at the list in horror. "That's not good." A single new word began to form in the center. Not a name, not a date, just 2 chilling letters. T-O. Megan's breath hitched.
Tom? But the letters kept going, looping downward, curving into something new, something the list had never written before. It wasn't writing Tom. It was writing a sentence, a message. When it finished, the ink gleamed wet and sharp. The taking continues. Megan felt her knees buckle. Lily whispered, "Mom, the deal's broken." Megan nodded slowly. "Yes, your father. He wasn't part of the cycle. He forced the list to break its own rule." From behind them came a soft creak, not from above, not from the trap door, from the far corner of the basement where the shadows were thicker. Lily squeezed her mother's hand hard. "Something's here." Megan turned. A small shape stepped out of the darkness. A boy, no older than 8, shirt torn, feet bare, eyes clouded like frost. He looked at Megan, then at Lily. Then he pointed at the list, and more shadows slipped into view behind him. Small figures, dozens of them, children lost across generations, stepping quietly into the dim light like they had been waiting for the cycle to break, waiting to return. The list pulsed once more as brightening the basement as if lit from within, and every child turned their head in the same direction, toward the stairs, toward the living, toward the living. Megan grabbed Lily. "We have to run, now!" As they bolted up the stairs, the house trembled, not with the weight of one ancient being, but with the footsteps of many. Children freed, children unbound, children with nowhere to go. By the time Megan slammed the basement door shut, she could already hear them climbing. The list had been a contract. Now it was an opening, and the taking would never be limited to one child again. It would take whoever it wanted.